Before we really get started on creating walls, I just want to mention again the difference between system families and component families, because a number of the elements that we create in this module are going to be system families, and walls are a good example of that. Remember, system families are created by the system, i.e. in Revit, when we need them. So architecture, wall, we choose a wall type and we create our elements. Revit is creating these wall elements on the fly as we define them, but we can't take those individual pieces of wall and save them outside of this project. That is fundamentally different to a component family such as a light fitting or a table or a chair, which is almost like a standalone block. We can create it in this project using the family editor, but we can also save those type of families as separate files on our system. They have a .rfa file extension and they can be reused in other projects. You'll recall from the unit on the properties palette that at the top here we have what's called the type selector. So if I start the wall tool and we look at this type selector and expand it, I just want to show you that within here we have 3 different basic wall groups that we can use. So the top group is called basic wall, and there are a number of types under there. Depending on your template, you will see different types listed here. I'll show you later in the course how you can easily create an infinite number of additional types. But if we move down for now, we next come to the curtain wall group. That's a specific type of wall element, and later on in the course I'm going to show you exactly how to create your own curtain walls using these tools. And then finally at the bottom we have a group called stacked walls. Those are for when you want to take any of these other wall types and stack them or nest them vertically into think of it as a virtual container called a stacked wall. So you might have a wall which is composed vertically of 4 or 5 different wall types. You give that stacked wall a name, and then when you create a wall you're automatically creating those 4 or 5 wall types vertically all at the same time. Okay, let's go ahead and create a basic wall. So I'm in a floor plan view, level 0, architecture menu. On the first panel, the build panel, we've got wall, select wall. Just note the options bar changes. We'll go through some of these things shortly, some of these key options. The main things to note now are the properties palette has changed to show us the different wall types that are available. Remember that drop down selector for the different types. So go ahead and pick a wall type from the basic wall group. So I'm going to leave it on that one for now. Click a start point for my wall. Just going to zoom in with my scroll wheel a little bit so we can see what's happening. And you can see I can move my cursor to choose the direction I want that wall to go in, and click for an endpoint on that wall. Now if I've finished creating walls, remember I can press the escape key, or remember that modify button that's always on the left hand side of the ribbon cancels out of the current command. So we're back to the default state in Revit. Let's go ahead and add a couple more walls in. So again, back to wall. Now you'll notice on that options bar that about halfway along there's a tick box called chain. With that turned on, I can carry on adding segments of wall without having to go back and hit that wall command each time. So it allows me to draw them in a chain. So I can just snap anywhere on the end of this wall. And because I've got chain turned on, I can continue adding elements in wherever I need those to be. And remember the alignment line, so it's helping me line up my new elements with the existing ones already in the model. And I'll close it at the end there, and again hit modify to cancel that wall command. Notice how all the junctions have automatically been tidied up for us. I'm just going to go ahead and create another section of wall. So architecture wall. Just before I put the wall into the model, I want you to look at the options bar here and at this parameter location line, and there's a drop down. And we've got some options here: wall center line, core center line, finish face exterior, and so forth. I'm going to explain now what this parameter location line actually does. For now, let's leave it on wall center line. Click a start point for my wall. I'm just going to zoom in, and you can see as I move my cursor to the right where the alignment line is. Remember the light blue dotted line. Notice that the path my cursor takes is along the center line of the wall, and that's because I have that location line parameter set on center line. So if you like, the path that I am drawing represents the center line of the wall. Now the neat feature of Revit is that it will remember the path that was used on a per element basis. So let me just cancel out of that for now. So if I select that instance of wall and we look over at its properties, we can see location line, it was set to wall center line. Let's go back and add some more elements of wall in, but this time I'm going to change that to finish face exterior. Click a start point. Notice now that the path my cursor is taking is along the external face of the wall. So the question you're probably asking is, what is the purpose of that location line parameter, and what difference does it actually make if we put in the same type of wall in? Well, if we were to change this wall type in any way, its makeup, its structure, i.e. its thickness, it will change its location depending on which location line parameter value we chose. So for example, these segments here were created, as you've just seen, set to the external face. If I was to change this wall type and make the wall twice as thick, the external face would stay in exactly the same location as it is now, and the wall would just get thicker, so it would eat away into the interior space of our building. Going back to the original segments we put in, remember we chose the wall center line as the location line for these. If we made this wall twice as thick, the center line of the wall would stay where it is, and the wall would expand internally and externally. So it's quite important to think about what you want that setting to be. Let's go back to wall. When you're putting your wall segments in, so typically if you know your brick coordinating sizes as you're putting in your external wall, you may want to set that location line to finish face exterior, And then at least if you go and change the makeup of the wall, let's say you make the insulation or the cavity thicker, you're not going to mess up those brick dimensions, because the outside line there won't change location. The wall will just get thicker or thinner depending on how you alter that structure. So let's look at how we control the height of our wall segments. For this example, I've just got a single piece of wall or a single instance of wall in my model. If I switch to a south elevation, there is the wall in elevation, and I've got two levels set up in my model, one at a height of 0 and one at 4 meters. So for now, I'm just going to select that segment of wall, and let's have a look at the properties in the properties palette that actually concern the height. We've got a base constraint, that is, what level does the wall start at? And you can see it's set to level 0. When we look across at our elevation, you can see indeed the base of the wall lines up with level 0. We've got a base offset, I'll talk about that in a second. Move down to top constraint. Now at the moment it's set to unconnected. If I click in there and have the little drop down come down, you can see I have a choice of levels. So this is a level parameter. All the levels in your project will be listed in this drop down. I've only got 2 levels in the whole project, hence there's only 2 listed there. So you've got the list of levels you've got and unconnected. If it's set to unconnected, that basically means that Revit is not using any of these levels to control the top of it. If it's unconnected, you then use the next parameter down, unconnected height, and you give it an absolute value there, an absolute height. So in this case it's set at 8 meters high. Much more useful, I would suggest, rather than using unconnected heights, is to have your levels control the height of your walls. So I'm going to pick level 1 from the drop down, and if I move my cursor off the properties palette, we can see that the wall has now come down, or the top of the wall has come down and is constrained by this level. So now you can really start to get a feel for how these levels work, why these datums are important, because they can control the heights of objects. So just go back to my 3D view just so you can see, as you may expect, that it's reduced in height in that view as well. Let me just go back to the south elevation. Select that segment of wall again. Now, we mentioned before about this base offset. You'll also see that there is a top offset as well. What that or those offsets do is just give you the ability to apply a positive or negative value that you want that wall to start at in relation to the base and the top level respectively. So if, for example, I need this wall to have its base start 500 mil down from whatever level 0 is currently at, I can select the piece of wall, click in there, put minus 500, move my cursor outside the palette, and you can see that the wall now starts 500 mil lower than level 0. And that relationship will always be maintained. So if, for example, I was to move level 0 up or down, you can see the base of the wall moves accordingly and that offset is respected. Exactly the same with the top. So select that piece of wall. So this could be our roof level if it's a flat roof and I want the walls to go up a meter above to form a parapet. I could set the top offset to 1 meter, move my cursor off the palette, and again the height of the wall now sails past the level by a metre, and it always will, regardless of whether I move the level up or down. In the default Autodesk template that ships with Revit, you get a number of wall types just to get you started. So if I show you the drop down selector there, you can see that there are a number of basic wall types already predefined, but at some point you are most certainly going to want to create your own new wall types, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Let's come out of that and take it right from step one. So select wall. The properties palette changes to show you the wall properties. There's the currently selected wall type. If there's a wall type that's very similar to what you're trying to create, select that first. So let's stick with that one there. You then need to hit this edit type button. And before you do anything else at all, you need to select duplicate. I can't stress that enough. If you don't and you start adjusting these parameters here, you're going to be adjusting this existing wall type, not a new one. So you need to duplicate the existing one first. So remember, edit type and then straight away duplicate. It asks you for a name for the new wall type. It basically takes the existing one you've based it on and adds a number 2 by default. I'm just going to adjust that. I'm going to make my new wall type have 150mm insulation. This one has 75mm insulation at the moment. So I'm just changing that in the name box there, so the name is more meaningful, so it represents the wall type we're going to create. Remember, this is just the name I'm changing here. By changing that value, it doesn't change the insulation. We're going to do that in a second. So I'll OK that there. In this drop down, you can now see that there is a new wall type, and there's the new type listed. That's the name we gave it. Remember, we changed that to 150. So go back there, make sure that is selected. If you're changing the structure, the build up, i.e. the layers that make up the wall, it's this top parameter you're interested in, structure here. Hit the edit button and you get this edit assembly panel, and in the center of this panel it's almost like a spreadsheet, if you like, with different rows. Each row represents a layer in your wall build up. So at the top, that's the external side of the wall, and at the bottom is the interior side. So we look down and we find the layer we're interested in, and it's this one here, the second one. And the material is fiberglass, and its thickness is currently 75mm. Because remember, this at the moment, this is just a copy of the previous wall type. I'm going to simply go on there, change that to 150mm for the thickness of that particular layer. Hit OK. Hit OK again. Now, that segment at the moment is of the original type, and you can see that is verified in the type selector. There is its name. So if we go down, there is the type we've just created. So I can swap out the type we've got at the moment to that one just simply by making sure it's selected and then picking on the type name, and you will notice that the wall instantly changes to the new type, and it's got thicker with that 150mm of insulation. So just run through that very quickly again on creating new wall types. Select wall, find a type that's similar to that which you want to create, hit edit type, remember to duplicate that to create a copy of it. change the name accordingly, and then hit that edit structure button and go and make the adjustments to your layers. Now you can take some of these layers out if they're no longer applicable using the delete key, or you can insert new layers just like inserting a row in Excel. So insert, you get a new entry there, pick the material, clicking that little button will bring up the materials browser. Just going to pick a material at random here just to demonstrate. So pick a material, pick a thickness for it. You can move these layers up and down, you can change the order there, just select it and change its order relative to the other layers. When you're happy with it, hit OK again, and now we can swap out the existing wall by selecting it, bringing the drop down selector and picking the new one we've just created. We can see that additional layer suddenly appears in the new wall type. Many of the wall types you create won't be symmetrical about their center line, i.e. the external face will be different from the internal face, for example. So when you're putting wall segments into your model, there is a convention for the direction of travel when you're specifying the path of your walls, and that is a clockwise convention. For example, if I want to put a few segments of wall into my model here, I need to go around my building in a clockwise direction. And back to the start. Just tidy up that corner, show you these trim tools later on in the course. Now if I switch to a 3D view, you can see indeed this wall type isn't symmetrical across its center line. It's plastered on the inside and has brickwork as its face on the outside, and you can see that the model is correct, i.e. the brickwork is on the outside of the building and the plaster is on the inside, and that is because I followed that clockwise convention when I place my wall segments down into the model. If you do happen to have placed your walls in an anti-clockwise direction, they will be inside out. So I've done that on purpose in this example here, just so we can see what happens and how to correct it. So if I switch to a 3D view, there indeed is my simple building, which now has plaster on the outside and brickwork on the inside. Switch back quickly to my floor plan. If I select a segment of wall, you will notice the two little arrows there that make up the orientation icon. I can quite simply click on that and it will hand the wall over. You'll notice by the hatch pattern it's swapped. I'll just change it back. You can also select the wall and use the space bar, and each press of the space bar will toggle it. If I go back to my 3D view, you can also do multiple instances of the wall in one go. So for example, I select all segments of wall and tap the space bar. Now deselect everything. You can see all segments of my wall were handed over or reorientated in one go just by selecting them all and then tapping the space bar. And that completes this unit. To get the most out of this training material, please take the complete course online at bimscape.com. Here you will find a complete learning management system that allows you to work through the course at your own pace. Comprehensive written tutorials provide additional information to that found in the training videos. Mark each unit as complete as you finish it and move on to the next. At any point, you can return to any of the units you have previously completed to go over the material again. If you'd like to take this course online, please visit www.bimscape.com/Revit for details.